They never screamed. Not once. Not even as they slipped silently into death. 12 nuns. One night. And not a single mark on their bodies. Just folded hands, closed eyes, and a faint smile. As if they had seen something no one else was meant to see. You weren't supposed to hear this. You weren't supposed to know that in the dead of winter, 1844, a convent buried in the woods of Ohio became the site of one of the most disturbing and hidden events in American history. 12 women, healthy, devout, gone. No blood, no poison, no fever, just gone. The church sealed the records. The town doctor's report vanished, and for nearly 2 centuries, the story was buried under snow, silence, and ash. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. This is not folklore, not a campfire tale. What you're about to hear is real. Sourced from lost journals, suppressed letters, and a hidden chamber found beneath stone. This is not entertainment. It's a door. And the door just opened. You're not here by chance. You're here because part of you already suspects the surface world is a lie. That the systems we trust, religious, political, historical, aren't just flawed. They're engineered. Built to distract. Built to pacify. Built to erase what we were never meant to remember. This story is one of those memories. 12 nuns, no signs of pain, no sign of struggle. Just peace, too much peace. And in the basement, hidden behind stone, a ritual space with 13 wooden crosses. 3 already laid flat, 10 still standing, each one carved with a name. Each one a countdown. You are not watching a video. You are being pulled in. Do you feel it? That weight behind your eyes? That cold pressure in your chest? That's the moment you begin to see through it. And once you see, you can't unsee. Take a breath. Because from this point forward, you are not an observer. You are part of it. The first death was dismissed as divine mystery. A young nun found in her bed, hands folded, rosary wrapped between her fingers. Her face calm, like she had just finished praying. No violence, no fever, no pain. Her body warm, her skin perfect, her heart still as stone. They buried her beneath the snow, not knowing she was just the beginning. 2 days later, another followed. Same position, same smile, same impossible silence. Then another, and another, until 12 bodies lay in the ground, all wearing the same expression of peace that felt less like holiness, and more like surrender. The local doctor made the journey 3 times, dragging his horse through waist-deep drifts, only to find nothing he could diagnose. No marks, no signs, nothing to explain what he was seeing. He called it a spiritual phenomenon. But his notes, what little survived the fire, tell another story. He wrote of women who looked alive long after death, with warm skin, clear eyes, and no decay. He said it was like they had chosen to die, and yet none of them left a word. No warnings, no cries, just silence and smiles. The church ordered the convent records sealed. The priest stopped visiting. The snow kept falling, and the rest of the world forgot. But one document survived, buried under floorboards and sealed in wax. The diary of Sister Mary Agnes, the recorder of the convent, the one who wrote it all down until her final night. Her handwriting starts strong, clear lines, neat thoughts, disciplined structure, but with each passing page, the ink trembles, the lines break, and the words grow darker. She saw something coming, something inside that building that changed them all. not from outside, from within. She wrote of voices in the chapel that no one else could hear. She wrote of sisters speaking in riddles, quoting scripture that didn't exist, whispering of a place called the Golden Veil. She wrote that they weren't dying. They were leaving this world for something older, something deeper. And once they crossed, they smiled, every single one. The Sacred Heart Convent was built to keep the world out. But what if that isolation didn't just protect them? What if it prepared them? 14 miles from the nearest town, 3 miles to the closest neighbor, and in the dead of winter, cut off completely. No riders, no mail, no rescue. Just snow, stone, and silence. Some say it was the perfect setting for madness. But madness doesn't move in patterns. It doesn't keep time. It doesn't build altars behind false walls with names carved in advance. That takes intention, that takes purpose. And what the doctor found in that hidden room beneath the convent wasn't hysteria. It was ritual. 13 crosses, 1 for each sister, 10 still standing, 3 laid down, and in the center, a larger cross, marked not with a sister's name, but the name of Mother Superior, Catherine Brennan, not dead, not even sick, just waiting, like a queen on a chessboard, unmoved until the final piece falls. That discovery changed everything, because it meant these women didn't just die. They followed something, and someone led them. The last remaining record from the convent describes a change in the sisters. Not fear, not grief, but peace. Obsessive peace. They stopped speaking of survival, stopped tending to the farm, stopped caring about the snow, the cold, the woodpile that was nearly gone. They spent hours in the chapel singing hymns that didn't match any known liturgy, songs in tongues, melodies in keys no one could replicate, and always the same expression on their faces, like they were remembering something from before they were born. Sister Mary Agnes wrote one line that haunts every man who's ever seen it. It read, "They are not afraid of dying. They're afraid I won't follow." Whatever they saw, whatever voice whispered through the silence of that convent, it didn't threaten them. It invited them, offered them something deeper than life, more certain than death. And one by one, they accepted, smiling, silent, willing, as if death was the final vow, and all that remained was to kneel and cross the veil. They called it the Golden Veil. That's what the sisters whispered about in the final days. Not heaven, not salvation, the Golden Veil. It wasn't in scripture, it wasn't in doctrine, it was something else entirely, something ancient, older than the church, older than the cross. Sister Mary Agnes wrote that the phrase came to them in dreams, that one by one the sisters began waking in the night with tears in their eyes and smiles on their lips, saying only one thing: "It's beautiful. The Golden Veil is beautiful." She tried to understand, tried to write it off as stress, fatigue, maybe grief. But then she saw it too. Not in a dream, but in the chapel. She said the air shimmered, not with light, but with weight, like something pressing against the walls of the world trying to come through. She said the candles didn't flicker. They bent towards the altar, as if pulled by gravity, not of this earth. And in that moment, she understood. The sisters weren't being taken. They were being chosen one by one, and Mother Superior Brennan was guiding them. Not in fear, not in panic, but in purpose. She began holding what she called midnight masses. No records of those services exist. No liturgical texts, no witnesses outside the convent. Only Mary Agnes's trembling notes. She said they didn't pray to Christ. They didn't speak of God. They chanted low tones, circular rhythms, words that didn't belong to any language she knew. And when it ended, The sisters would rise in silence, walk to their rooms, and another would die before morning every time. 12 deaths, 12 midnight masses, 12 smiles. No pain, no fight, only surrender to something they believed was divine. But the more Agnes watched, the more she wrote, the more she questioned. Not what they believed, but who had given it to them. Because whatever the golden veil was, it didn't come from heaven. It came from somewhere else. And once it opened, there was no going back. Mother Superior, Brennan changed first. That's what Mary Agnes believed. Not in body, in presence. She stopped flinching at the cold, stopped blinking in candlelight. And when she spoke, the sisters listened like they were under a spell. Not afraid, devoted, as if she held the key to something only they could sense. She stopped referring to God by name. She said, "The light beyond the veil speaks clearer now." Agnes asked her what that meant, and Brennan smiled. Not kindly, not warmly, but with knowledge. She said, "You will see it when you're ready," and then walked away. That night, another sister died. Same peace, same posture, same impossible calm. The convent fell into rhythm, a slow, deliberate cadence. One death every night, one soul passed into something they couldn't explain, but didn't question. Because the fear was gone. It had been replaced by anticipation, and Mary Agnes found herself losing grip. She tried to pray, but the words felt hollow. She tried to write, but her hands trembled. And the other sisters? They looked at her differently now, not with judgment, with pity, as if she was the only one still trapped in a cage they had escaped. She wrote, "I am surrounded by the dead, and yet I am the only one who feels buried." And that line says everything, because this was never about death. It was about departure, a leaving, a migration of the soul guided by something older than any religion we understand. And as each night passed, the veil thinned, not metaphorically. Literally, Agnes described doors opening by themselves, chapel walls sweating in the cold, shadows moving without light, and always, always, that presence, just behind her shoulder, not watching, waiting, for her to surrender to. The townsfolk outside the convent sensed the change too. Whispers began to drift through the snow-covered fields. Farmers saw shadows in the woods. Neighbors heard chanting carried by the wind, a silence so thick it pressed against their windows at night, but no one dared approach. The convent was a fortress, built not just of bricks and mortar, but of faith and fear. And as the deaths mounted, something else happened. Letters stopped arriving. Visitors ceased coming. Even the local priest disappeared. The church hierarchy grew silent, as if the whole world wanted to forget. But inside, the sisters were gathering, forming circles, holding hands, singing songs that twisted the mind. Mary Agnes's last entries speak of a darkness, not external, but internal, a consuming force, wrapping itself around the convent like chains. She wrote, "I feel it in my bones, in my blood. This is no salvation. This is a prison, and the locks are on the inside." She begged for help, prayed for deliverance. But the prayers went unanswered, because this wasn't a battle of faith. It was a war for control, control of the mind, control of the soul. The convent had become a cage, built from shadows and silence, and the sisters were both captors and captives, trapped in a ritual they no longer understood, but couldn't escape. The last night in the convent was not peaceful. It was a storm disguised as silence. Mary Agnes wrote of trembling walls and whispers that weren't human. She described shadows stretching across the chapel floor like living things. The sisters gathered one final time, no longer women, but vessels, holding something ancient and terrible inside, Mother Superior Brennan stood at the center, her eyes dark, unreadable. She spoke in a voice that wasn't hers, words that twisted language, bending it into something monstrous. And then, one by one, the sisters knelt, hands clasped, heads bowed, and without a sound, 12 hearts stopped beating. Not by sickness, not by poison, but by choice. A pact sealed in silence. Mary Agnes was the only one left. Her final entry is a warning, a plea. She wrote that the veil between worlds had been pierced, that the sisters had stepped beyond the boundary, and that something was waiting for her, that something was patient and relentless. She ended her words with a name whispered only in shadows. The name no one dares speak aloud, the name that still haunts the woods of Ohio, the name of the force that claimed 12 souls in one night and waits for more. After the convent fell silent, rumors began to spread like wildfire. Locals spoke of strange lights flickering through the winter woods, of unearthly voices carried by the wind, animals avoiding the area entirely. Even the land seemed to recoil. The once fertile soil turned cold and barren. Farmers who tried to harvest near the convent's grounds found their crops rotting overnight. The town of Millbrook itself became a ghost town, slowly emptied by fear and whispers, but official records vanished. The church erased the convent from its annals. Doctors who investigated were quietly discredited, and anyone who asked too many questions disappeared without a trace. The convent became a forbidden memory, a wound covered by time, but the darkness never left. It settled in the roots of the land, in the trees twisted by the snow, in the cold wind that howls through the empty fields. Those who listen closely swear they can still hear the sisters singing, a hymn that carries no salvation, only a warning and a promise that Mariel waits and the veil remains open. The veil Mariel opened is not a place. It's a threshold, a fracture in the fabric of reality, and once torn, it never fully heals. It waits, hungry, for those who sense the silence between worlds, for those who hear the call beneath the noise of everyday life. The sisters answered that call, not out of madness or despair, but because something promised them a freedom beyond this existence, a power beyond understanding. And it's no accident that they died smiling, because in that final moment, they crossed into a new reality, one where control is absolute, where fear dissolves into obedience, where the boundaries of self crumble, and the truth they uncovered was never meant for mortal minds. You, watching this now, stand at a similar crossroads. You've glimpsed what lurks behind the veil, and the world you thought you knew is already unraveling. This knowledge isn't safe, it's dangerous. It will change you. It will demand something from you, and there is no turning back. The greatest secret the convent's tragedy reveals is this: control is not just physical, it is psychological, it is spiritual. The sisters were not simply victims of an ancient force. They were instruments of a system designed to bend minds and break wills. A system built to create perfect obedience through fear and surrender, through rituals crafted to dismantle identity, piece by piece. The veil was not just a supernatural phenomenon. It was a metaphor for the psychological chains that bind us all. Institutions, faiths, and powers have always used fear as a tool to keep men and women trapped in cycles of submission, to silence questions, to erase memories, to enforce compliance. The convent's silence was no accident. It was a blueprint for manipulation, a warning, a map for those who seek control through hidden agendas. And those 12 women, they were the first victims, but they are not the last, because the veil still exists, and it waits for the next generation to stumble into its grasp. The hidden chamber beneath Sacred Heart was no ordinary room. It was a crucible, a place where faith and fear collided to forge obedience. The 13 crosses were more than memorials. They were symbols of commitment. Each sister marked her own fate by resting beneath a wooden cross, and Mother Superior Brennan's cross in the center was a throne, a command post for the ritual's architect. The ritual was designed to strip away doubt, to replace free will with devotion so complete it bordered on possession. It is the dark heart of institutional manipulation, where trust becomes control, where devotion becomes submission, and the line between salvation and damnation disappears. These women were broken down carefully, step by step, prayer by prayer, until they welcomed the void and embraced the unknown. This is not just history. This is a lesson, a blueprint for power, for those who seek it, and for those who want to resist. The story of Sacred Heart is a mirror, reflecting the darkest truths about faith, about control, and about the price of surrender. Beyond the ritual and the crosses lies the true horror, not death, but transformation. The sisters didn't just die. They became something else, something between worlds. Mary Agnes described it as a walking silence, a presence without flesh or blood. They moved through the halls like shadows, speaking in voices that echoed from nowhere. Their eyes, once full of life, were empty pools reflecting a distant light. Some nights, she said, she saw them standing in the chapel, hands raised in silent worship, waiting for the veil to open wider and for Mariel to step through again. The convent became a liminal space, a crossroads, where the living and the dead blurred into one, and the sisters were no longer women, but guardians of the threshold, trapped between salvation and damnation, caught in a cycle they couldn't break. Mary Agnes begged for release, for understanding, but found none, only silence, and the cold weight of the veil closing around her. The veil's influence didn't end with the convent's walls. It spread like a shadow over the entire region. The land itself seemed cursed. Farmers' fields grew barren. Livestock disappeared without explanation. Families fled in fear. And those who stayed whispered of strange figures seen at the edge of the woods. Some claimed to hear faint hymns carried on the wind, songs that twisted the mind and pulled at the soul. The church, desperate to bury the scandal, sealed the convent's records, destroyed correspondence, and forbade any mention of Sacred Heart in official documents. But secrets have a way of escaping, and the truth leaked out in letters, diaries, and hushed conversations. Mary Agnes's diary survived because someone hid it beneath the floorboards, a relic of forbidden knowledge, and proof that the darkness that consumed Sacred Heart was no accident. It was deliberate, and it was waiting for the next chapter to begin. The darkness behind Sacred Heart was no isolated curse. It was part of a greater design, an ancient mechanism woven into the fabric of institutions, a web of control that spans centuries, governments, churches, secret societies, all instruments of the same machine, designed to shape minds and bend wills. The tragedy of the 12 nuns is a glimpse behind the curtain, a warning of what happens when power is given over without question, when obedience replaces autonomy and fear masks itself as faith. These forces do not just seek to govern bodies, they seek to possess souls, to rewrite reality itself. And the veil opened in Ohio is still tearing. Right now, in places you would never suspect. Every day, men and women fall into the same traps, surrendering their freedom piece by piece. And the price is always the same: the loss of self, the loss of truth, the loss of light. You may feel the pull already, that subtle weight in your mind, the quiet voices that tell you to conform, to accept the rules without question, to surrender your will for safety, for comfort. This is the veil. It's not just a story from Ohio, it's the mechanism that controls millions, invisible chains forged by fear and manipulation. But here's the truth few dare to say. Freedom is not given, it is taken. It is wrested from the grasp of those who would keep you blind. And to take it, you must first see the veil for what it is: a prison disguised as salvation, a promise of peace that leads only to submission. Awareness is the first step, resistance the next, and transformation, the ultimate reward. But to walk this path, you must commit. You must face the darkness within and reject the lies fed to you by those who profit from your silence. The veil is woven with symbols and rituals, subtle triggers hidden in plain sight. They seep into culture, religion, politics, feeding fear and obedience like a slow poison. Every prayer recited without thought, every law accepted without question, every tradition followed blindly, they tighten the threads and tighten the grip. The convent's chants, those strange, unearthly hymns, are echoes of these ancient bindings, a coded language designed to rewire the mind, to replace doubt with devotion, to transform rebellion into worship. This isn't myth, it's a blueprint, a manual for control written in silence. And unless you recognize it, you will find yourself caught in the same web, dancing to the rhythm of a power you never saw coming. The choice is yours, to break free or to fall deeper. Now listen closely because this is crucial. At this moment, you stand on a threshold between the comfortable illusion and the unsettling truth. This knowledge you're absorbing isn't just stories from the past. It's alive. It's active. The veil is not a one-time event. It's a cycle. It repeats. It preys on those who are unaware, those who look away, those who choose comfort over truth. The 12 nuns were the first to pay the price, but you are next in line. And here is the key to breaking the cycle. Awaken. Disrupt. Reject the lullabies of obedience. Because the greatest weapon of control is silence. The silence that follows the unspoken. That's why now, here, I want you to commit. In the comments, type this phrase twice. I see the veil, and I choose freedom. Say it out loud if you must. This isn't just engagement. It's an anchor, a declaration, a transformation. To those who do, you join the few who refuse to be trapped. To those who don't, the veil will continue to tighten its grip. The choice is raw, real, and yours. Those words you just wrote, they are your first step out of the darkness. Because once you see the veil for what it truly is, the journey changes. You begin to notice the patterns everywhere, the subtle manipulations woven into daily life, the unspoken rules that keep society compliant, the endless cycles of distraction designed to dull your senses. The veil doesn't just control a convent in Ohio. It's the architecture of power worldwide. It's in governments that promise freedom, yet enforce control. In religions that preach love, but demand obedience. In media that tells stories, but hides the truth. Every system you trust is part of this design, and the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. There is no neutrality. You are either inside the veil or fighting to tear it apart. The veil is not just around you, it's inside you, and the battle for your soul is already underway. The true war isn't fought in shadows outside. It's waged within your own mind. Every thought you believe, every fear you accept, every doubt you silence. They shape the battlefield. The veil feeds on complacency. It thrives when you forget your own power. But you have a weapon they fear. Awareness, the fierce clarity that cuts through illusion. It breaks the chains forged by generations of silence. It shatters the rituals that enslave, and it awakens the ancient fire within you, the fire of resistance. But beware, awakening is not comfortable. It's painful, lonely, and often dangerous. Because once you see behind the veil, there is no going back. You become a target, marked by those who benefit from your ignorance. But you also become a beacon, a light in the dark, a threat to the system. And that is why this knowledge must be guarded, shared only with those who are ready. Now you stand at the precipice, the edge of the known and the forbidden. This story of 12 nuns in Ohio is more than a mystery. It is a warning etched into history's darkest corners, a call to those who seek truth, to those who refuse to bow to unseen masters. The veil is a living thing. It shifts and mutates, adapting to new forms. But its essence remains the same: control through fear, silence through obedience, and the greatest betrayal, believing you are powerless, but power lies dormant inside you, waiting to be claimed, to break the cycle, to tear down the veil, and to walk free in a world not defined by fear. This is your inheritance now. The knowledge they tried to bury, the truth they feared would set you free. You have walked through the shadow of Sacred Heart, through ancient rituals and silent deaths, through lies wrapped in prayer, and found the thread that unravels the veil. But beware, this path is not for the faint of heart. It demands sacrifice, relentless courage, and the willingness to face the darkness within. Because the veil will fight back. It will whisper doubts. It will try to pull you back into the silence. But you are no longer blind. You are awakened, a guardian now, a warrior armed with forbidden truth. The legacy of the 12 nuns is yours, to carry, to resist, to transcend. Walk forward, into the night, into the unknown, and never look back.